The Nazi concentration camps, by their very nature, were a veritable gathering of people of the worst kind who found a use for their fantasies, having in their undivided possession thousands of powerless prisoners who had absolutely no rights. People of all stripes in Nazi uniform could do whatever they wanted. Therefore, in addition to the usual conditions of detention of prisoners, which even with all assumptions could not be called minimally human, the warders arranged for themselves additional entertainment, which even today makes us uncomfortable. Little prisoners. The most horrifying of all, of course, are the atrocities committed by the Nazis against the small prisoners who were physically incapable of perceiving the situation in which they found themselves, or of defending themselves in any way, or of understanding at all what was happening. It was the norm to herd the population into a wire-fenced area to take them away from their mothers. Children who tried to steal something edible during the march or during some free time were punished by wardens and guards. In one of the children's camps, many prisoners recalled an unidentified German woman, Frau Elsa, who made a pastime out of the children's sense of constant hunger. As one of the former prisoners, Pyotr Fedorovich, recalled, sometimes this Frau would come into the camp where the children were lying on the bunks, and she would say, "Come, kinder, you go with her and she starts having fun. I remember what happened to me. Here she is standing, holding a mug of milk and giving it to me from a distance, teasing me. I go hungry, and from behind the sheepdog, jump over me I somersaulted, and so I did not drink the milk." It was said that this amused the German woman very much. And so much so that when one of the kids stretched out in front of the spilled milk, he was knocked down by the sheepdog, Frau Elsa graciously allowed him to drink the spilled milk from the ground. In another camp, the main entertainment of the guards was the siren. It could sound at any moment. After the siren started, the children had to run to their mothers and then quickly return back. In one of the camps in Belarus, the Nazis invented an amusement called harnessing. When they got drunk, they gathered the strongest ones, put them in a cart, and sat on top. They often made them sing while running. Like any human being, children strived to survive and wanted to live. Therefore, they often asked uncles and aunts of doctors to take pity on them and give them the opportunity to gain strength to be useful. And very often the uncles and aunts gave such permission, giving the doomed baby the opportunity to take a walk in order to rest a little. But the walk was allowed in a strictly defined direction. We think you can see in which direction. Entertainment over condemned and adult prisoners. As for adult prisoners, it is almost impossible to list the number of entertainments of the Nazis. The most harmless was when the guards, having chosen a few people they did not like, gave the commands lie down and crawl. And the command had to be executed immediately. And the guards standing nearby had fun, often even filming what they saw. The prisoners were forced to perform a kind of ritual which amused the guards. For example, according to the recollections of the surviving prisoner, Yarmakovich, the infamous Koldichev oak tree always had hinges ready. The sentenced person was forced to shout loudly throughout the day what he was sentenced for. Thus, Yarmakovich remembered a young man who stood near the oak tree and shouted loudly, "Gone! Caught up!" Hundreds of other amusements of guards and wardens are known today. For example, the hobbies of some of them in making lampshades and leather goods. The infamous Frau Abazur, Ilse Koch, was fond of this. Some Nazi craftsmen even set up furniture production in their spare time. The material for these products was, of course, the wards of these warders. Irma Greasy, one of the most terrible executioners for the sake of entertainment, deliberately did not feed her dogs for several days and then set them on the prisoners while she herself watched with laughter. Maria Mandel, who organized an orchestra of female prisoners to bravura music to greet new prisoners arriving at the camp, boxing and sports teams. On the one hand, this is a monstrous pastime, but on the other hand, oddly enough, it also became a symbol of the prisoners' resistance to the Nazis. In order to hone their hand-to-hand combat skills, concentration camp guards began to select the toughest prisoners for so-called boxing matches. The main idea of such bouts was to demonstrate the superiority of Aryans over non-Aryans. Although, to be fair, even defeating an exhausted and starving prisoner could not be considered something outstanding. However, quite often, professional Nazi boxers faced professional wrestlers, boxers, for example, Soviet boxer Andrei Borzenko, and athletes who not only did not lose, but even defeated the wardens. Later, the idea of fights was transformed by the Nazis. They organized tournaments between prisoners of different team, which Hitlerites formed on their own. Winning a fight meant life. It should be noted that the wardens provided their athletes with a heavy ration so that the prisoner could last as many fights as possible. However, even victory did not guarantee life. Often the camp authorities, furious at the invincibility of an athlete, simply ordered his liquidation.